Hey everybody,
Hey.
we're about to go live. Hope you enjoy today's show. Get y'all a little intro music for your listening pleasure. Here we go.
Welcome to Aging Insight, the only show dedicated to your elder care concerns and your resource for learning about how to manage your health, housing, financial, and legal needs. This is a live call-in program featuring John Ross and Lisa Shoalmire, elder law attorneys and senior advocates for the ARC Latex. Aging Insight is dedicated to helping you navigate the challenges and blessing of growing older. So call in and ask your questions. The number is 903-793-1071. Now here are your hosts, John Ross and Lisa Shoalmire.
Welcome to Aging Insight, everybody. This is your host, John Ross, here live in the studio on this beautiful November. It's November.
It's November.
Halloween is over.
Yes, well.
So put up your Christmas tree.
Yeah, put up the Christmas tree. I've already seen some folks with their Christmas tree and their lights up, and I'm not talking about in the stores. I'm talking about like regular people.
We were driving down Kings Highway, and somebody had you could see the tree in the window and the lights on the house.
But so much for the pumpkins. I guess they're already gone. But
yeah, no, I mean in this divided country that we have, there's the before Thanksgiving Christmas people and the after Thanksgiving Christmas people.
I don't know. I think that there is the what do they call that? The cold Civil War.
That's right. Yes.
Between the pumpkins and the turkeys and the manger scenes coming out in November.
That's right. So as you can tell, Lisa and I in the studio together, which is like the first time in a month.
No. This is the first time since I think August.
Wow.
Because we had a lot of recorded shows in September because we were out, and then every Saturday for the past 3 or 4 weeks, either you've been here or I've been here.
Yeah, it's been.
But not together.
No, not together. But here we are.
That's right. But I won't. But you'll be on your own the last part of the show. I gotta go.
That's true. So yes. If you have anything specific to ask Lisa, you can call in at 903-793-1071, but do so in the first 30 minutes.
That's right.
Because she is going to bail on me. But that's all right. All right. So just a few little things to start the show off. Some things that are coming up. This Wednesday, November the 7th, is the Aging Insight Law School Lunch. This is something that it's a program that we have done in lots of different areas. And we finally started it as a lunch program. We've been doing the breakfast over at Trinity.
Yeah, we've been doing the eggs and issues for several years, but we've learned that there's some folks who maybe work who can't take in the information during a late breakfast time, and a lot of those folks, we talked to a lot of people who were concerned about or caring for maybe parents, and they want this information and desperately need it. So to kind of meet that demand, we started a little lunch program called Law School Lunch, and we are committed that it starts on time and it ends on time.
That's right. It starts at 12 and you're out of there at 1 o'clock.
Yeah, so that way if you are on your lunch break or whatever, then you can still make the program and not get in trouble to get back to work.
That's right. And it's going to be over at the Texarkana Convention Center. That's the one right there on Calhoun Creek, over there close to the mall. Starts at 1 o'clock.
Starts at 12 o'clock.
Starts at 12 o'clock. And this week's topic is, the title is Save My House. And I will be discussing ways to protect your home, particularly your home, from things like nursing home, but also other creditors as well, some different strategies, some different things to think about when it comes to saving the house. Should be a good program. It's a free program, so it does not cost you anything. As our marketer down in the Deep East Texas area likes to say, I will guarantee that if you come, if you don't learn anything, I will give you your money back.
That's right. Yeah.
So yeah, come on out and check that out. Now, if you really like getting some detailed information, This weekend is the last time to sign up for the Advanced Estate Planning and Elder Law class that's going on at Texarkana College. This is going to be this Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So it's 3 nights in a row.
3 nights in a row. So that's a bit of a commitment.
That's a bit of a commitment. It's 2 hours a night. So it'll be from 6 to 8, 3 nights in a row. And I am going to teach you everything you ever wanted to know about elder law.
In 6 hours or less.
In 6 hours or less.
Or pretty much 6 hours.
In pretty much 6 hours.
Or 6 hours or more, because a lot of times when we do those classes, we really, we do get pretty academic about it as far as why the law is the way it is and what the implications are. So if you're a bit of a brainiac and you want to dive a little deeper than just listening to the radio show, then this class is definitely for you. It's always a good time. By the time we get to Thursday, everybody feels like family, and it's lots of give and take, good questions. So yeah, definitely sign up. And John, for that elder law class, is there any charge related to that?
It's also free.
Yeah.
It's also free. Just go to you can go to the Texarkana College website, look under their community education section, and look for Advanced Elder Law, and just click the little sign up button. I looked yesterday, and we've got about 20 spots left. However, that was dropping pretty fast. So if you are interested, get on there and get registered.
Well, and John, the funny thing is that 6 hours of Advanced Elder Law that we offer to the community is 6 hours more elder law than was offered by my law school.
That's exactly right.
So, I went to Baylor Law School a year or two ago.
Yeah, a couple years ago.
A few years ago. They did not offer any instruction in the elder law area, and basically learned it on my own, just because of the need in our community. And John, at Texas Tech, where you went?
Nothing at Texas Tech either.
So if you're a community member, want to come out, you'll be getting more elder law than most law students. Certainly law students who went through school a few years back.
That's right.
We didn't get that.
And if you want to try to keep up with all of the different things that we do out there in the community, be sure and follow the Ross and Shoalmire Facebook page and the Aging Insight Facebook page. Or heck, you could just go find me on Facebook, and I'm always posting stuff on there. Most of it's not crazy.
Yeah, most of it's safe for family viewing.
Most of it. That's right. So yeah, get on there and check us out on Facebook. And of course, we do the show on Facebook Live. So sometimes. Well, yeah. I do the show on Facebook Live.
That's because you have all the technology. I don't have all that.
Yeah, well, and one other thing that I wanted to mention here at the start of the show before we get into today's topic, November 11th. Is, of course, Veterans Day.
Yes.
And every year on Veterans Day, I go around, being a veteran myself,
Yes, we're aware.
Yeah.
Thank you for your service.
You're welcome for my service. And every year I go around and I see how many complimentary goods and services I can acquire in one day, taking full advantage of my veteran status. It's that one day a year where, you can often get a free coffee or a free breakfast or maybe a free lunch or appetizer or things like that. And I just go around and get as much as I can. Always a good time. I always have fun with it. But this year I kind of got a bright idea that I'm just going to rent me a party van.
Yes.
And I have. And I'm going to load that thing full of veterans. Many as want to come. I've already
and that the van can hold.
And that the van can hold.
Yes.
That's right. I think my van will hold 15 to 20 maybe. Yeah. And I think I've already got about five or six signed up, including and then myself as well. And I've mentioned it to several others as well. If you're listening, you're a veteran, and you would like to spend next Sunday driving around in a party van with me and a bunch of other veterans, obtaining free goods and services. Complimentary goods and services, then just give me a shout. You can call the office. Our office number is 903-223-5653, or just look up Ross and Shoalmire and you'll find us there. And give us a call and say, hey, you want to jump on the bus and come on.
Yeah, no, and so if you're thinking about getting on the bus, but you're thinking that this week you need to go get a haircut so you can go look nice for the bus, yeah, don't worry about it. We probably can fix you up. During the free tour of complimentary goods and services, there might be a haircut.
Yeah,
involved.
in fact, Sports Clips, as I understand, we have talked to them, and they will be opening 1 hour early just for the people.
Just for the
on
party
my
bus people. So if you're a regular listener and you're not on the party bus, don't show up an hour early.
If you like coffee, haircuts, enchiladas, breakfasts,
and maybe even a beer if that's your thing.
And maybe even a beer if that's your thing, and you would like to not pay for any of it, give us a shout.
Yeah, so we're
anyway,
trying to have fun, do something.
Yeah, fun stuff for Veterans Day. So, all right, so we're going to get into today's topic. This is one that we've done as a speech several times. And in fact, Lisa and I just recorded an episode of the Aging Insight television show on this topic. But it's because it's one of those topics that people ask us about quite a bit. And that is, how do you make out a will?
Yeah.
And a lot of times people are asking us this, not because they're just curious about the methodology. No. They think they're going to try to do it themselves.
Yeah, they're going to create for themselves a complimentary will.
That's right. That's right.
But the law says you can do that. So
that's right. And the thing is we can sit here on the radio and we can tell you all day long that if you try to do it yourself, you're going to mess it up.
Yeah.
That it's too complicated. There's too many factors that you're just unaware of, and because of that, you're gonna mess it up.
Yeah, we can tell you that.
We can tell you that, but there is going to be a segment of you out there that you're like, no, I got this.
Yeah, no, I am smart. I am worthy, and I can do this. And I don't want to put any more of my money in those dirty lawyer pockets.
That's right. And you know what? Because we know that, here's the thing. Sure, we prepare wills as part of our practice, and we're happy to discuss that with anybody. But we also know that some of y'all are going to try to do it yourself, or you're going to try to assist, grandma or somebody who's going to try to do it herself or whatever. What we do know is that it is so much more expensive to fix it when it has been messed up than it is to do it right on the front end. So since some of y'all are gonna do it on your own, despite our warning not to do it.
Despite our warnings that you consider completely self-serving.
That's right. Despite that, some of y'all still gonna do it out there. And what we're gonna try to do with today's program is at least give you some fundamentals on how you can do it yourself and come at least a little closer to not messing it up.
Yeah, to doing it better than you would otherwise.
That's right.
And I will have to say, John, that this program is less than an hour long. So I will go ahead and give an extra disclaimer today.
Go for it.
There is absolutely no way we can cover an hour-long or less radio program how to do a perfect will, just because there are so many factors. So
yeah, this was a topic in law school.
Yes, this was.
In fact, this was an entire semester-long class.
Yeah. Followed
by another semester-long class, if you actually intended on practicing in this area.
Yeah, and I even did a capstone class.
Of course.
I did. But so we're going to definitely give you some pointers and things, but keep in mind that this will not be an exhaustive, comprehensive overview of this. So if you decide to do it on your own, we hope these pointers are helpful, but we make no warranties, guarantees, et cetera, that this will create for you the most perfect will for your situation. Disclaimer.
Lawyer disclaimer. Wow. So, all right. Listen, y'all stick around. We'll be right back. All right. Of course, we're still live, and we have a happy belated Be Nice to Lawyers Day.
Yay! I know I got a nice email from the commenter on there, and just appreciate it because I see that holiday come up every year, and I kind of chuckle. It's almost like, is there a Be Nice to your used car salesman day?
I don't think there is.
Be nice to your probation officer day. I I think that as attorneys, we bring a lot of value and compassion in our practice area, but the outlook by most people is not particularly complimentary.
No, that's certainly true.
But thank you.
But yes, absolutely. And I did actually look at it, and basically the way you celebrate Be Nice to Lawyer Day is simply by just not telling any lawyer jokes.
Oh, I thought you were going to say send whiskey or
no,
something.
And that's actually something that like I was kind of hoping that maybe it would be like send whiskey or something,
Yeah.
but no, basically
you should refrain from belittling your lawyer on that day.
That's the entire celebration is just don't tell lawyer jokes.
Hey, well, I'll take it.
Yeah, well, I guess it's better than nothing, right? It's more than we're getting from the used car dealers, so we'll take it. All right. Well, thanks for the comment there. Whoops, let me make that go away. All right, so we've got a few little got a few seconds left.
Gotta watch the radio.
Yeah, gotta watch the radio. Of course, if anybody is watching and they would also like to come join, the party bus is it really is a party bus. It's
got the lights.
This is not the church van.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, no, we are not loading up in the church van. Yeah. This is like one of those things with the curved leather seats and the lights and the big screen TV on the inside and stuff. So
it's gonna be fun. I've got to make a playlist for the party bus because you can play your own music or have a playlist that's playing, and so I'm gonna make a playlist for the party bus. So
I think you should.
We're gonna go around town and I don't know. So I guess if any of you watching have any suggestions for the playlist for the Veterans Collect Free Stuff party bus, then throw them down in the comments, and I might throw it on the playlist we'll be listening to as we drive around all day.
Yeah, I guess that's right. And of course, I guess if anybody wanted to, if they weren't a veteran but they just wanted to come by and say hi or something, be happy to give you an itinerary. And
that's right. So you can come and visit our veterans and say thanks.
Yeah. Probably have a little media presence and stuff. Who knows? We'll see. All right. Looks like we're headed back onto the radio. So here we go.
Have a question? Phone 903-793-1071. Now back to Aging Insight with John and Lisa.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to Aging Insight. I'm Lisa Shoalmire. I'm here with John Ross, and we are live in the studio today, and we're also live on Facebook today because John's here and the technology's rolling. But today we are talking about do-it-yourself wills, last will and testament. A lot of people, they start thinking about as they get a little older, hey, I need to get a last will done. And some of those folks think, hey, this is the internet age, the information age. I'll just, do some searches and I'll come up with something on my own, save me a little bank, and then I'll have something.
Yeah. And the thing is you're going to mess that up, but we're going to try to help you minimize how badly.
Minimize the mess up.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's kind of like if you were going to do your own surgery, it would be great. We could get on here and we could say, okay, look, if you're going to do your own surgery, at least use clean tools. Right. Some basics, right? And that's what we're going to talk about. So let's kind of jump into it a little bit. I think the first thing in all of this is you have to kind of understand the fundamentals of what it takes to even make a will, right? For example, you actually have to mean to make a will.
Yeah, so we're talking about people who say, hey, I'm going to make my own will, and then they get out a piece of paper and they start on it, but the deal is, what you put on that piece of paper has to show that you intended for that piece of paper to be your last will and testament.
Right. So just imagine I get a piece of paper out and I say, I, John Ross, hereby give my car to cousin Stewie.
Well,
right?
That when does that take place exactly?
Exactly, right? You can't tell from just the document whether or not that was meant to be a lifetime gift.
Yeah, like a right now gift.
Yeah, or is it a little bit later, or is it when I die? And so one of the things that you're required, the legal phrase for this is you've got to have what they call testamentary intent, which means just by looking at the piece of paper, you have to be able to tell that the person means for that piece of paper to be a will.
Yeah. So yeah, if you just get a piece of notebook paper out and you write down, you know, I want my granddaughter Sarah to have my pearl necklace. I want, you know, my grandson Robert to have the 30-06. You know, you may have verbally told someone that you mean for that to be what's to happen when you die. But if that piece of paper does not say that, then it's not a will.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And so it may seem kind of silly, but this is why you would put at the top of that page, last will and testament.
Right.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
Or at least start the whole sentence off with, when I die.
Yeah, and you think this is so simple, but we have seen people who have written out things on notebook paper and it did not express that intention or in any way indicate it was the last will, and it wasn't one.
Right.
So that's why we're starting with the very basic fundamentals.
Right. So again, that may sound simple, that may sound silly, but you start out by basically making sure that it's clear that it is a will, and from that standpoint, that it's your will, right? So, you know, if I'm just looking at a piece of paper, I don't know who I is, right? I leave stuff, right? So you might want to just say, you know, I, comma, John Ross.
Yeah.
Comma.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Or something like that. But you want to make sure it's clear. So you're starting it out. This is my last will and testament. And you know, one of the other requirements is that you be of sound mind.
Yeah, you have to have testamentary capacity to make a will, and that testamentary capacity, John, it's a fairly low capacity. I mean, well, this is a very important legal document. It's not a, you know, the purpose of it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, everybody understands what a last will and testament is. It's a document that describes your wishes of who is to get your stuff when you're dead.
That's right.
But so in order to have a will, you have to have capacity to make one. And that capacity includes, frankly, that you know who your family members are and what we call the natural objects of your bounty.
Yep.
That's the old phrase that we use for that. And that you have a general idea of what your stuff is and what your debts are.
Mm-hmm.
And that you understand that by making a last will, you are disposing of your assets through this document, that the purpose of it is to give your stuff away when you die.
That's right. So again, one of those things you can do as you kind of open up this will is give a little background to that by saying something like, you know, I'm John Ross. I have a spouse. I have children. Their names are.
Yeah. So now we've described who your family members are.
Right. So at least now we have some evidence that you knew who your people were. You might even go so far as to say, you know, owning a home at whatever location or something like that. Now, I'm not saying get down and list all your spoons, but a little something that says, hey, this guy at least knows who he is, who his people are, and where he's at in the world.
Right. So
yeah, some fundamentals. All right. Well, we got to take one more break for our bottom of the hour news break. I hope you'll stick around as we get into the kind of the meat of making out that will on your own. So good stuff. Stick around. We'll be right back. All right. And of course, we're still live talking about making wills.
Well, and just if anybody's wondering, John, how many times have you had somebody come in and say, well, Dad told me that he wanted me to have the back 40 acres, or Dad told me to make sure that, you know, so-and-so gets his guitar.
Well, actually, so I have a will right now. Well, I have two wills, husband and wife. And both wills leave everything to each other. And when they both die, you know, like, so wife's will says I leave everything to my husband, but if he's already dead, then I leave $10,000 to these two people and the rest to somebody else, right? And then Dad says basically the same thing. I leave everything to the wife, but if she's already deceased, then I leave $10,000 to each of these two people. So it's very clear that what they wanted was that everything would go to one of them, and then when the second person died, everything would go 10,000. Each of those two people would get 10,000 bucks, right? But then they added a little something else in there, and they said that in order for this will to be valid, in order for you to get anything from my will, you have to survive me by 6 months.
Yeah, that's a long time. We don't usually see it that long of a survival period.
That's right. And wife died, husband died 2 weeks later. So if you look at wife's will, it says I leave everything to husband, but of course he died right after. So he's treated as having already been dead. And of course, when husband died 2 weeks later, wife was already dead. So both of their wills are actually leaving everything as if they had no spouse, which means those two people that were supposed to get 10,000 bucks each, they're going to get 20,000 bucks each. Now, the person that gets all the rest of it, yeah. What do you think her comment was to me? Well, that's not what they meant to happen.
Right.
Yeah. Well, in fact, she said, and I talked to them, and they told me.
Yeah, they told me.
They told me that they wanted each of them to get 10,000 bucks. Well, not happening. And again, it's not because I actually completely believe her.
Right. And I believe that was the intent. Unfortunately, the verbiage and the structure and the provisions of those wills do not match the likely intent of the testator.
Right. So the only
and we can only go by the paper.
That's right. That you can only go back to the testator's intent if the document is not clear.
Yeah.
And in this case, the document is perfectly clear.
Right.
The only time you can go back to intent would be if just by reading it, you can't quite figure it out. I leave my Chevy Mustang to Bob. Well, there is no such thing as a Chevy Mustang, right? It's
right.
Either a Ford Mustang or it's a Chevy Camaro, but there is no Chevy Mustang, right? So we could go back and say, oh, well, this guy owned a Ford Mustang. And he had told everybody that he wanted little Timmy to get the Ford Mustang. So this clearly erroneous part of the will that just doesn't make any sense reading it on its own. Yes, now we can bring in the testator's intent. But when it just says, hey, you're getting 10,000 bucks each, they're getting 10,000 bucks each.
Yeah, so that's a rough one.
Yeah. But yeah. So you said, have I heard that? Yeah. Just in the last 3 days.
Well, and the other thing is, back in the old days in Texas, we could even have an oral will, because back, people weren't literate. They didn't necessarily have paper handy. They were living out on, in pioneer days. But there really is no such thing these days as an oral will.
No, there is no oral will, nor is there a digital will.
Yeah.
Not in the United States, not yet.
And nor a video will.
Nor a video will, because that's still basically an oral will.
Yeah.
Interesting where, if you tried to make an oral will, but you had it transcribed and then signed to the transcription.
Yeah, I can tell John's wheels are rolling.
I mean, I like
just thought of that.
I just thought of that. So I like to think of things.
All right. Well, I'm going to leave you with the rest of the show.
Oh.
I'm gonna go. But anyway.
All right. So everybody say bye to Lisa. Yes. Yeah, she's going to leave. Don't forget your package. She's off bearing gifts. All right. I'm going back live. Welcome back to Aging Insight, everybody. This is your host, John Ross, no longer in the studio with Lisa Shoalmire. She has abandoned me, left me here all by myself to finish up the topic today on making out your own will, doing it yourself, right? You're going to do this on your own, and you're going to start out, as we talked in the first half hour, that you're going to start out by making it clear that, yes, this is, in fact, your will, right? You're going to put last will and testament right across the top of it, go from there. That way there's no question that you have testamentary intent, that you mean to make a will. The second thing you're going to do is you're going to identify your family and maybe at least a few basics about who you are, right? So, and this is going to show that we're trying to get you to show that you are not a crazy person that doesn't know who you are. Just in the last year, there was a Texas case where a gentleman in his will bequeathed property that he did not own. So he said, I want, cousin Timmy to get 40 acres, the 40 acres in DeKalb. Well, a year before he made out that will, he had sold the 40 acres in DeKalb. And ultimately, the will was thrown out because the court said, look, when he did this will, he didn't even remember that he had sold that property a year ago. And so he must not have been of sound mind. So you want to put some things in there that kind of indicate, who your people are, what your property is. Now, beyond that, we're going to get to giving away some stuff, right? You got two different types of bequests out there. One would be specific things, right? So specific things could come in the form of a dollar figure. I want, Timmy to get $100,000 or $5 or whatever. It could be a specific vehicle. I want him to get the car. But here's the thing. I need you to think about a couple of things when you start talking about specific bequests, right? So think about that car, right? If I put in my will that I want little Timmy to get my 2014 Chevy Impala. Well, it's true, I have a 2014 Chevy Impala, but I'm probably not going to have it for long. I mean, another year or two, I've already got 160,000 miles on that thing. Another year or two, I'll probably cross 300,000. And by that point, I'm probably going to need something else. So if I go out and buy me a new Chevy Impala, so now I've got a 20 model year 2020 Chevy Impala, but I never go back and change that will, then what happens to this bequest to Timmy, right? On the one hand, it says I leave him my car, which is a 2000 Chevy Impala, but if I don't have the old Impala, does he still get it? And if you have discrepancies like that, you're likely going to make people mad. And when people get mad, they end up contesting wills. So if you are going to give specific items of property, think through what happens if that piece of property is no longer around. So you might say, I leave Timmy whatever car I'm driving at the time of my death, which currently is a Chevy Impala, right? So basically now I'm giving Timmy any car I have, period. He's getting my car, just currently happens to be an Impala, but it could be whatever at the time of my death. Or maybe I say, I leave him that Impala, but if for whatever reason that Impala is not around anymore, then I don't want him to get anything. So you want to think through that. The other thing is, what happens if Timmy dies? If I want Timmy to get the Impala, but he predeceases me, does that Impala go to his family, or does that gift just go away and the asset go back into the pot with everything else? So anytime you're making specific gifts like that, think through that as, what if that specific gift is not around? And also, what if the person dies? The other thing with specific gifts, if you are talking about specific gifts of money, like dollar figures, be very careful with the dollar figures. Don't ever give somebody a dollar figure that's so big that you're not going to still have the money at your death. And so just as an example, we had a lady and she had about $200,000 and she had 3 children, one of which she had supported quite a bit during lifetime. And so she didn't really want him to get much. So she said, I'm going to leave this one $20,000, but then I'm going to leave all the rest of the cash to the other 2 kids. And again, at the time, she had about $200,000. Well, She spent about 4 years, 5 years in a nursing facility, burning assets at $5,000 a month. And basically, at the time of her death, she had whittled that 200,000 so that at the time of her death, she had 15,000 bucks. But what did the will say? It said, I leave, 20,000 to that one kid, which basically meant he got all of it and the kids got nothing. So if you're thinking about dollar figures, or if you're thinking about dividing money out there, a small dollar figure, and again, small is dependent on the size of your estate. But $100, $500, $1,000, or if you've got millions of dollars, then saying 10,000 or 50,000, you're probably safe. But you want to think through that. Otherwise, use percentages. If this lady that I mentioned, she made a bequest of 20,000 out of her 200,000. If she would have just said, I leave that one kid 10% of the cash, and I want the remaining cash divided equally, then it would have been much simpler to figure that out at that time. So again, just when you're making those bequests, there you go. So I said there's two types. These are the specifics. The next one, though, is the residuary. This is the everything else that you have. This is something that I've seen several people miss over the years. They did their best to try to list out every single piece of property, asset, money that they had, right? So they said, I want this money to go here, and I want this car to go here, and I want my house to go here, and I want this piece of land to go there. And they list it all out. And maybe there's page after page of all of these specific things. And then the person dies, but as a result, the reason that they died was because of something like asbestosis, or a defective medical device, or something like that. And so after their death, there is wrongful death money. Well, there's no provision in that will for who gets that. And so they listed out all these specific things. But even if you think you have listed out every single asset you have, the next thing you want to put in there, though, is what's called a residuary clause. And this says something like, I leave the rest and the remainder to whoever, right? So I leave my car to Timmy, I leave my house to Sally, and then I leave everything else in equal shares to Tim and Sally. So that residuary clause then catches anything that you haven't listed. And, in some people's case, all they have is a residuary clause, right? So the will just simply says, everything I have at the time of my death, I leave to these two people. But you definitely want to include that residuary clause. We've had several over the years that did not, and it created something called partial intestacy. And intestacy meaning dying without a will. So here you have a person that, as it relates to some assets, they have a will, and as it relates to other assets, they don't have a will. And you want to talk about a messed up situation. That's a terribly complicated, very difficult way to plan. So don't do that. All right, we've got a few more things that we've got to cover before you're going to be able to complete this will. So we want you to stick around. I've got to take one more break. We'll be right back. And of course, I'm still live here, and Lisa has abandoned me in the studio, as you can tell. Yeah, I actually saw a will recently. A guy had gone in to Office Depot and gotten one of those like fill in the blank will forms, and at the top he wrote, his name, and it said I blank, and he wrote his name, and it said I leave the following, and it had blanks, and he had listed out house, car, whatever. But then the next paragraph, it said, I leave the rest and the remainder to blank. And he had X'd that paragraph out and said, not applicable. Well, Yeah, the thing was, it was applicable. He had no idea what the residuary clause was, or at least didn't understand what it was that he was doing. And this was one of those situations where he had the will, which was valid, but the will didn't cover all the assets. So we had to basically do two probates, one for the will, but then one for the assets that weren't covered by the will. So the partial intestacy there. So essentially just doubling what was already a pretty expensive little process, but now just doubled the cost of that, all basically because he scratched out one little paragraph that he should have included. As a side note, do not use those stupid fill in the blank forms. They are awful, 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 awful. They're typically not state specific, so there's things in there that are not going to be relevant to wherever it is that you live. They're just terrible. You'd be actually better off typically just handwriting out what your wishes are. You're still going to mess it up, and it's still not going to be very good. But I would, generally speaking, I would rather have you just write it out yourself than try to use one of those fill in the blank wills. Those things are often just not very good at all. Now when it comes to some of the services, like the Legal Zooms and the American Legal or whatever, US Legal or whatever it is, some of the online places, some of those wills are okay. Often, though, once again, they're not terribly state specific. So some of the language, change just one word and it can have a whole new meaning out there. So you really want to kind of be careful about really using anything on a service out there. All right, heading back live. Here we go.
Have a question? Phone 903-793-1071. Now back to Aging Insight with John and Lisa.
Welcome back to Aging Insight, everybody. This is John Ross here, no longer with Lisa Shoalmire in the studio because she left me to go and attend a wedding. So I'm here all by myself telling you the last few things I think you ought to know if you're going to try to make out your own will. So we started out, you're going to open this document by saying, yes, this is a will. You're going to say who you are. You're going to say who your family is. And now you're going to get, and you got into, any specific bequest that you wanted to make, car or asset. But again, thinking through what happens if that asset doesn't exist, what happens if the person you leave it to dies. And then beyond that, you're going to have something called a residuary clause. Who gets everything else? And even if you think you've covered everything else, you don't know that for sure. There may be assets at your death that you are unaware of and that you could not plan for. So always have that residuary clause, period, no matter what. Here's who gets the rest and the remainder. Now, you are not going to be able to probate your will. You know why? Because you'll be dead. That's right. It takes two things for a will to be valid. The first is you've got to die. Anytime before that, that will could be changed. It could be revoked. Anything could happen to it. So until you pass away, a will is just not a valid instrument. So first thing is you got to die. The second thing is that will is going to have to go through the probate process. This means hiring an attorney, taking the will to court, presenting it to the judge, and going through the process of making sure that this, in fact, is a valid will. All these rules that we've been talking about, testamentary capacity, testamentary intent, things like that, those are not determined by you. These are determined by a judge after your death. This is the probate process. And once the will is determined valid, somebody is going to have to be in charge of making all of those provisions in the will happen. Right? If you're going to leave little Timmy $10,000, somebody has to have the power to go to the bank and get the $10,000. If you die with a will, this person is called the executor. And so it's up to you then to appoint an executor. So you're saying, here's who I want to handle all of this stuff. Now, with an executor, generally speaking, if you appoint an executor, yes, that's who's going to do the job, but an executor is still subject to a lot of court supervision. For example, an executor usually will have to post a bond. And what this is an insurance policy where the executor goes out and out of their own pocket, they buy an insurance policy that says, if I steal anything from this estate, well, then this insurance policy will pay money into the estate to reimburse the beneficiaries. And so obviously the bigger the estate, the more expensive that bond could be. The other thing that they're going to have to do is throughout that probate process, as they're trying to collect assets, pay bills, maybe sell the house to turn it into cash so it can be divided, things like that. All of that has to be supervised by the judge, which means they want to sell a piece of property, they go back to the judge. They want to pay a bill, they go back to the judge and ask permission. They want to distribute assets, they go back to the judge and ask permission. That's very expensive because this whole process is involving attorneys, which means all of that going back to court, that's just continuing to add up all of those legal fees. So this is why you'll often see something called an independent executor. An independent executor, in your will, you're saying, I want this person to be able to administer my estate without court supervision. In other words, I'm comfortable with them being able to sell the car off and turn it to cash or pay some bills or whatever without having to go back and ask the judge for permission every single time. So if you're appointing somebody that you have full faith and confidence in, then appointing them as your independent executor might be a good idea. But if all you say is executor, then that person is going to be subject to all of that court supervision. The other thing is you can say whether or not the executor has to post that bond. So once again, if you have somebody that you're fully confident in that's going to be that executor, you might say, I want them to be my independent executor, and I want them to serve without bond. That would make it much cheaper. That process is a whole lot cheaper now. It's cheaper on the executor. It's easier on everybody. It's a lot less in legal fees. But you got to understand there's a big difference between executor and independent executor, or bond or no bond, and there's pros and cons to doing it both ways. So it all comes down to you looking at the people that you're appointing and doing all of that right. So finally, you're going to get to signing this thing. There's two ways to make the will out. One is something that would be entirely in your own handwriting. So all of the things that we've talked about, you have handwritten, not in pencil, just FYI. There's nothing saying that a penciled will is not valid. It's just that if you pencil it and somebody's unhappy about it, they're going to erase it. So just don't use pencil. So, you've gotten a piece of paper out, you've handwritten all of this, and if it's entirely in your own handwriting, it must be signed by you, and that's it. Period. Now, I would recommend that you date it, although that is not required. But by dating it, if you end up doing another will at another point, we'll know which one came in time sooner or later. And it's not uncommon for people to do 2 or 3 different wills during their lifetime. And if you don't have a date on them, you don't know which one came first and which one came last. So, but that's not a requirement. Main requirement is that it must be signed by you. Notice I did not say witnessed, and I did not say notarized. If it's entirely in your own handwriting, it is not required to have witnesses or a notary. This is what's called a holographic will. If it's not entirely in your own handwriting, so for example, if you did it up on your computer and then printed it off and signed it, then it must be signed in the presence of two witnesses, and those have to be two independent witnesses, right? So if you're leaving everything to Timmy and Sally cannot be the witnesses on this deal. That should be relatively obvious, but I have had that exact same thing happen before. I've also had people where they signed for mom. Mom just didn't feel like signing or whatever the deal was, so they signed for mom. No, you have to sign your own will. And again, if it's not entirely in your handwriting, it's got to be signed in the presence of two independent witnesses, which in Texas, those witnesses have to be at least 14 years old, or if you're in Arkansas, the witnesses have to be at least 18 years old. Notice once again, I did not say notarized. Notarization is not a requirement to create a valid will. Not in Texas, not in Arkansas, not in Louisiana, not in Oklahoma. So you might be wondering, well, why then do I see notaries on all of these wills that you've seen? Maybe your friends or somebody else, you've seen their will, and sure enough, it was notarized. Well, the reason is not to validate the will. The reason is to make the probate process easier, right? So I get two friends of mine to witness the will, and I die. As part of that probate process, those witnesses would need to come and testify that, yes, they signed the will in my presence and that I signed the will in their presence. And they would have to be in court and testify to that. Well, what if the two people witnessing my will are a lot older than me? I mean, they may not even be around. They may not even be alive at the time I've died, and that will is going to probate. So the reason you notarize the will is because you have an attachment to the back page. This is what's called a self-proving affidavit. And this little document is something that says the notary is having everybody swear. They're saying John is swearing and the witnesses are swearing that they all signed in each other's presence. And now they've all sworn that. The notary is stamping that, saying that they took that oath from all three parties, that all three parties swear that they're in each other's presence. Now, that affidavit can be used in the probate process. So we no longer have to pull those witnesses into court, which again is going to make this a whole lot simpler and a whole lot easier. So you're going to make the will, you're going to say it as a will, you're going to identify your people, you're going to give some stuff away, you're going to have that residuary clause, you're going to sign it, and if it's not entirely in your own handwriting, you're going to have it witnessed by at least two independent witnesses. And there you've got a really bad but legal will. So notice I still say really bad. You got to understand, there's hundreds of pages of laws on this, hundreds of pages of laws on this. And on top of that, there's hundreds of years of cases of people arguing about wills because it doesn't say what the person thought it said. So if you're going to do it, try to do it right. And again, little advice along the way never hurt anybody. So hope you enjoyed the show. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye. All right. Bye.